And greetings, everybody. Keith here. Hoping everybody's having a good day, enjoying life, living life, loving life. I want to remind everybody, hit the like, share, and subscribe button. And there is a PayPal link down there for anybody that would care to share some love. Always appreciated. And I'm going to get into it tonight as it relates to a man is bound by his word and how it relates to the record. And I'll start out with when I was let out of jail the last time I was incarcerated. I got a document that said judge's discharge, or it said discharge order, and it was signed, of course, by the judge. And when I went up to the counter and they gave me all my things back, they wanted me to sign this document, and clearly on top it said release paperwork. And through my research at that point, I understood that the wording is very important. And so I said, no, I'm not going to sign that. And Miguel on the other side of the counter said, well, we can't let you out unless you sign this. So I pulled a document out of my pocket that said discharge order, clearly signed by the judge, and simply asked her, so you're telling me you're willing to violate the judge's discharge order? And I was out of there quicker than I'd been in 30 years. And this is the premise to the thing about my cancer. Because when I went to the hospital and entered the emergency room, I got a document that clearly said on the top, sales agreement. Location, Allen ER, Emergency Hospital. Unity Point at home. Okay. And then it's got all this information up there, and it, let's see here. It's got a list of choose equipment to be provided. Please circle the size needed. Now, this is in reference to the equipment. And so they gave me a shoulder immobilizer. And I imagine some medication. I've got some prescriptions and stuff in there, which is a point I'll make in a little bit. But down here it says obtain patient signature. Authorization to bill. Assignment of benefits. Assignment of benefits. Okay. Remember that. And it says, I certify that the information given by me in applying for payment under the Medicare or Medicaid programs, insurance, and or other state, federal, or local programs is true and correct to the best of my knowledge. So first and foremost, I want to point out it is not just Medicare or Medicaid, but insurance, private or public, and or other state, federal, or local programs. I request that payment of authorized benefits be made directly to Unity Point at home on my behalf. Okay, so if we understand the language here, I'm making payments of benefits is the assertion. Okay? I agree to pay deductibles, co-payments, and any other amounts due after payment of benefits on my behalf by any and all third-party payors. I agree to pay deductibles, co-payments, and any amounts due after payment of benefits. So my benefits have already been paid, right? I'll show you how that's done. I permit a copy of this authorization to be used in place of the original I acknowledge receipt of the above listed supplies, medical equipment, and or services. I understand what I have read and what was explained to me and agree to the terms and conditions stated above and on the back of this form. So this sales agreement that we agree to, the customer agrees to pay the stated price for the equipment and or services. Don't disclude that just because it's not said here. It was already stated. Customer agrees to pay the stated price for the equipment, it being understood that credit will be given to the customer's account for payments received from any medical insurance program or from any third party, those other payors. Credit's supposed to go to my account because I gave the benefit. That's the equal exchange. Okay, and I'll point that out here. So let's take a look. Oops. So let's take a look at the term benefactor first. A benefactor is someone who gives a benefit. So if I'm the one paying the benefit, then I'm the one giving the benefit. Therefore, I am the benefactor. While a beneficiary is someone who receives it. And I named Unity Point in that contract as the receiver of the benefit. Okay? In essence, a benefactor provides a benefit and a beneficiary is the recipient of the benefit. Is the Social Security number a beneficiary record? Yes, in the context of Social Security Administration and other benefit-related programs, a Social Security number is a key identifier within a beneficiary record. Okay? Everybody following along? The next one is 20 CFR 422.103, Social Security numbers, general procedures. The Social Security Administration maintains a record of the earnings reported for each individual assigned a Social Security number. So they assigned a Social Security number, and that is an assignment that people undertake without recognizing that destroys or sets off in some way or another depositions their actual natural character of benefactor. Because without you, that record of the individual would never have been created. And in that creation, the individual is assigned a Social Security number. Okay? We following along? The individual's name and Social Security number identify the record. It does not identify anything else. It does not identify anything else. In context of the Social Security Administration and other benefit-related programs, a Social Security number is a key identifier within a beneficiary's record. So if it's identifying the record, then that Social Security record is the beneficiary record. And you pay the benefit. Without you, there is no benefit. Okay? And that is so that the wages or self-employment income reported for or by the individual so assigned a Social Security number can be properly posted to the individual's record. Additional procedures concerning Social Security numbers may be found in Internal Revenue Service, Department of the Treasury Regulation, 26 CFR 31.6011B-2. Internal Revenue Service, the assignment of a Social Security number itself is a taxpayer identification number, a taxpayer identification number. Applying for a number, application, an individual needing, it's a matter of necessity. No person shall reside within the zone except federal, state, or municipal officers or agents whose resident presence is deemed necessary by the board. 19 U.S.C. 81O. An individual needing a Social Security number may apply for one by completing a prescribed application and submitting the required evidence. One completing a prescribed application and submitting, it doesn't say what application. So I went to the hospital, I got that sales agreement to apply for services and equipment. I made an agreement and I submitted the required evidence. Benefactor. I signed that document, Benefactor, Keith Little. That was August 2nd of 2023. Excuse me, 22. Just over 3 years ago. And it goes on to say an individual outside the United States may apply for a Social Security number card at the Department of Veteran Affairs Regional Office, Manila, Philippines, at any U.S. Foreign Service post or at U.S. military post outside the United States for special procedures for filing applications with other government agencies. Additionally, a U.S. resident may apply for a Social Security number for a non-resident dependent when the number is necessary for U.S. tax purposes or some other valid reason. The evidence requirements of 422.107 are met, and we determine that a personal interview with the dependent is not required. So where is the determination of residency by the board as necessary if it doesn't happen with that personal interview? Are they determining that the requirements of residency are valid because mom and dad said so? Understand what's being done. Birth registration document. We may enter into an agreement with officials of a state, including, for this purpose, the District of Columbia, Puerto Rico, Guam, the U.S. Virgin Islands, and New York City. New York City. Special implications for modern times, folks. To establish as part of the official birth registration process a procedure to assist us in assigning Social Security numbers to newborn children. where an agreement is in effect, a parent, as part of the official birth registration process, need not complete a prescribed application and may request that we assign a Social Security number to the newborn child. A newborn child that has not been deemed a resident yet, but yet is assigned a Social Security number as if though he is a Medicare qualified government employee, a resident of some sort, level or another, federal, state, or municipal officer or agent whose resident presence is deemed necessary by the board. But that isn't so because nobody had any kind of personal interview, and it was simply a request that we assign a Social Security number to a newborn child. What is a newborn child, folks? I urge you to look that up and find out for yourself. It has to do with that adoption foster care system and is not a biological link of any sort. Okay? How numbers are assigned. Application. If you complete a prescribed application, we will require you to furnish evidence as necessary. And everything else is about a term known as residency. Not residence, not resident, but residency. The act of being a resident. To be or not to be. To assist us in establishing your age, U.S. citizenship, or alien status. And again, this is to establish your age upon birth, the very first day. Well, of course, he's obviously only 1 day old. The rest of it is a matter of tracking your age, U.S. citizenship, or alien status. True identity and previously assigned Social Security numbers, if any. True identity and not the identity of the beneficiary. Yeah, I'm Keith Little. That's my Social Security number. No, that's the individual Social Security number. It was assigned to the individual who is a person in personification of what is real. It is not real. You are real. We may require you to undergo a personal interview. You means an individual who owes a debt to the United States within the scope of this subpart. So first, in order to apply and then have a Social Security number assigned, you would have to owe a debt to the United States. We all with me? We all with me? Everybody following along? The next one is the Commodity Exchange Act, as it goes to all those applications, sales agreements, registrations, contracts, release paperwork. Man is bound by his words, and that paper is bonded in person. If you're going to sign on that document, this is the Commodities Exchange Contract, and it says Contract Enforcement, or Commodities Exchange Act. And it says contract enforcement between eligible counterparties. Counterparties. When you're on one side of the counter and somebody else is on the other side of the counter, holding each other accountable. And the best way to do that, folks, is by using something known as a countable noun. A countable noun. Benefactor is a countable noun. It can be used in both singular and plural form, benefactor or benefactors. This is why I talk about concise English and knowing what the language really is. It says, in general, no hybrid instrument sold to any investor shall be void, voidable, or unenforceable, and no party to a hybrid instrument shall be entitled to rescind or recover any payment with respect to the hybrid instrument under this section or any other provision of federal or state law based solely on the failure of the hybrid instrument to comply with the terms or conditions of Section 2F or regulations of the Commission. Okay? That's what all that bonded paper is. They're hybrid forms, hybrid instruments, monetary instruments. Similar material as money. Swaps. Swaps. And this is where the credit default swap comes in. Okay? Remember that customer agrees to make payment for equipment and third-party payments so long as it's understood that credit is given to the customer's account. If you don't recognize that and make clear your capacity and status in asserting that, then there's a swap that goes on and it never comes back. People insist that they have to pay that bill. You understand how the billing is done, then you accept the credit in return. No agreement, sales agreements or otherwise, contracts or transaction between eligible contract participants or persons reasonably believed to be eligible contract participants shall be void, voidable, or unenforceable. Reasonably believed to be. To be or not to be. I am the benefactor, Keith Little. The beneficiary, Keith Little, has been assigned a Social Security number. They are the holder of that record. Therefore, they're the ones that are technically supposed to receive the benefit. In the hospital wanting my information, since I didn't have insurance, other than that Social Security number, which is a beneficiary record, allowed me to act as a third-party payor and give the directive that payment to benefit is to go to the hospital because of this sales agreement. But in that, if I'm the one that's making the payment, then you have to give me credit. See, I made the payment of benefit, didn't I? See, that's the payment. Says so in the contract. Void, voidable, or unenforceable in no party to such agreement, contract, or transaction shall be entitled to rescind or recover any payment made with respect to the agreement. They have no way out but to accept that if I'm the one that's got to make the payment, then they have to give me credit. Under this section or any other provision of federal or state law based solely on the failure of the agreement to contract or transaction to meet the definition of a swap under Section 1A, or to be cleared. To be cleared. My dad accused me of ruining his good name, and that he hoped that one day I would clear his name. It's a big automated clearinghouse, guys. That's the false patriarch. That's their house. To be cleared. Okay? So let's look at that assignment or that signature. Because like I said, by benefactor. UCC 3-402, since it is a sales agreement and a commercial agreement at that for payment for equipment or services, products, commercial items, and services. If a person acting or purporting to act as a representative signs an instrument by signing either the name of the represented person or the name of the signer, the represented person is bound by the signature to the same extent the represented person would be bound if the signature were on a simple contract. If the represented person is bound, the signature of the representative is the authorized signature of the represented person, and the represented person is liable on the instrument whether or not identified in the instrument. My liability is to make payment, and that payment is understood to be a benefit. Therefore, equal consideration, equal benefit. In return, it says I'm supposed to receive credit. Now, do you see them handing me a check or $17,459 in cash? No. You suppose it's being made in credit? No, it's not being made in credit either, because nobody's making a payment other than the benefit of owe no man anything but to love one another. For to love one another is to fulfill the law. If you say I owe you because I had a necessity of life, having lung cancer, and you put out a public service obligation to help such people as me, and then hand me a sales agreement, I know I'm selling something. What is it I'm selling? A benefit. I should get paid equally for that benefit. Simple to me. If a representative signs the name of the representative to an instrument, and the signature is an authorized signature of the represented person, the following rules apply. If the form of the signature shows unambiguously that the signature is made on behalf of the represented person who has identified in the instrument, the representative is not liable on the instrument. So if the benefactor is the one that gives to the beneficiary is the one named in the instrument, and I'm the one that gave to him, and I clarify that representative capacity, then I am not liable for him in the instrument, am I? Subject to subsection C, if I, 1, the form of the signature does not show unambiguously that the signature is made in a representative capacity. In other words, by benefactor, by representative, by assistant, by author, whatever, by trustee, then it's unambiguous, or it's ambiguous. Does not show unambiguously, in other words, clarifies it, that the signature is made in a representative capacity, or 2, the represented person is not identified in the instrument, the representative is liable on the instrument to the holder in due course that took the instrument without notice that the representative was not intended to be liable on the instrument. Again, the reason why you clarify by the unambiguous benefactor, Keith Little. I'm the one giving the benefit. That's my liability. It's taken care of. You can now process your paperwork. So long as you give me credit. With respect to any other person, the representative is liable on the instrument unless the representative proves that the original parties did not intend the representative to be liable on the instrument. Assignment of benefits. I was assigning benefits, not liabilities. That was my liability. If the representative signs the name of the representative as drawer of a check without indication of the representative status, and the check is payable from an account of the represented person who is identified on the check, the signer is not liable on the check if the signature is an authorized signature of the represented person, like trustee, benefactor, author. That's when you can start signing in different names. By benefactor, it's obvious in this situation, it's still going to be Keith Little. But Samuel Clemens would by author write Mark Twain. So let's take a look. And I guess I forgot to switch that. That's the UCC 3-402 representative signature. Signature by representative. Just so you know. I always show my sources. So let's take a look at the next one, which is the banking code, U.S. Code 1813 definitions. And we're going to go down to that term deposit. Like I said earlier, it's a deposition, a deposition, a misplacement, or a displacement. Deposit. And like I said, that sales contract is similar material to money. Okay, it's in paper form. It has an expression of values on it, a representative of value under 18 U.S.C. obligations of the obligations or other securities in the United States. It says the term deposit means the unpaid balance of money. So after the benefit has been paid, there's an unpaid balance of money. And if you want me to deposit the unpaid balance of money or its equivalent received or held by a bank or savings association in the usual course of business. Now, this would be the hospital's banking institution. Okay? That would be their account, not the customer's account. And for which it has given or is obligated to give credit, either conditionally or unconditionally, to a commercial checking, savings, time, or thrift account, or which is evidenced by its certificate of deposit. Let me read again. I certify that the information given by me in applying for payment under the Medicare or Medicaid programs, insurance, and or other state, federal, or local programs is true and correct to the best of my knowledge. Evidenced by its certificate of deposit, which I then deposited with that hospital clerk. Thrift certificate, investment certificate, certificate of indebtedness, or other similar name, like a sales agreement with certifying statements in it, or a check or draft drawn against a deposit account and certified by the bank or savings association, or a letter of credit, or a traveler's check on which the bank or savings association is primarily liable. Provided that, without limiting the generality of the term money or its equivalent, similar material under monetary instruments. Look it up. U.S. Code monetary instrument definition. Similar material. Bonded paper. A blank piece of paper is similar material. It's a representative of value, and a man is bound by his word. Is that not a representative of value? Why do I need to write it down? Can't I just utter it and they'll record it? Then it's written down, right? Why do you need my signature? See where I'm going, folks? Any such account or instrument must be regarded as evidencing the receipt of the equivalent of money when credited or issued in exchange. Data exchanges for checks or drafts or for a promissory note upon which the person obtaining any such credit or instrument is primarily or secondarily liable. So if the bank is primary and the person obtaining such credit or instrument is primarily or secondarily liable, what person is obtaining that? Because if I'm the one that's giving it, in like kind, benefit for credit, credit for benefit, then am I not the one obtaining such credit or instrument primarily or secondarily? If that's so, I have to admittedly be the one that gave credit primarily. I'm not the bank. Why would the bank be liable? Because they're holder of the instrument, not me. I don't need instrumentality other than my voice. A man is bound by his words. He doesn't have to write them down. He can speak them and he can act them. Nowhere does it say a man's word has to be written down. Okay? Or other instruments forwarded to such bank or savings association for collection. That's an act of debt collecting. Owe no man anything but to love one another. For to love one another is to fulfill the law. 12 CFR. We went from the U.S. Code, 12 U.S. Code, 1813 definitions. Now we're going to see 12 CFR 204.2 definitions. Deposit. Again, the unpaid balance of money or its equivalent received or held by a depository institution in which similar material as money is deposited as evidence of certain values and things like that. In the usual course of business, it was a sales agreement, and for which it is given or is obligated to give credit. It says customer agrees to make payment so long as it's understood that credit is given to the customer's account. Now, I made payment of benefit to the hospital. It's their obligation to pass on any credits to me then. Either conditionally or unconditionally, it was conditioned in the sales agreement to an account, including interest credited. Interest credited because I'm the benefactor that gave to the beneficiary. I'm the data link. I gave the data elements. I exchanged the data elements so you had access to that record so you could get those benefits. Or which is evidenced by an instrument on which the depository institution is primarily liable. They're primarily liable to me just as much as I'm primarily liable to them. I already paid. I already gave them the data elements to receive the benefit. That's why I have that nice document that says you owe nothing. And I get one every 6 weeks, $17,459. And the hospital has the right to appeal. It's that simple, folks. I'm bound by my word. I promise. I will pay for those products and services so long as it's understood that when I pay the hospital through their financial institution and that banking association, that account, to extend credits to me. I gave them access. I'm the one that charged it up. I'm the one that made it available so that they could prevail in that appeal. All they have to do is comprehend where that liability sits and go to the Social Security Administration for it. If it's owed, they'll pay it. Wait a minute. You guys remember the capitation fees and prepaid insurances and how the federal government already does that? See, they've already been paid. They've already been paid, folks. We may make an agreement with an official of the state. That's their payment. That's their contract. You entered it unknowingly as a presumed. Person reasonably believed to be eligible contract participants without knowing that you're not a resident. You are not, in fact, a federal, state, or municipal officer or agent whose resident presence is deemed necessary by the board. You're not supposed to be interacting in these public services like this emergency room as if though you're a contract participant. You have to clarify your status and capacity on that contract, clarifying by benefactor. I'm the outside person. I'm not doing this as part of the contract. I understand that somewhere they made an agreement with an official of the state, and in the assignment of a social security number to an individual, they're using a record system to transfer benefits and credits. They don't need my money to do that. They don't need my paperwork to do. I don't need to do any paperwork to do that. The only paperwork I do is the private communications that I have with these doctors and stuff. When I keep these documents and I show them what I'm talking about, when I keep all this stuff and I go into their offices and I show them I know what I'm talking about when they use the firm name on a prescription. They don't use the last name. They have the last name there with the first name in all caps. That's not a pronoun. It's not a personal noun. That's not proper grammar style for a name. I explain this to, and they understand this. They don't know what this is. They've never seen this. But I guarantee you in the back office, when it comes to that financial institution, and whether you're actually the contract participant or somebody else, that's the clarification that needs to be made. They're doing all kinds of conversions of things, and that's a conversion of the benefactor. You're the benefactor, not the beneficiary. The individual's name and number. Where do you see a number on yourself? Where do you see a name on yourself? It's not your name, it's hearsay. Mom and dad gave you a name. That's why they call it a given name. It's not yours. You're just using it. Samuel Clemens decided to use a different name to clarify the distinction by author Mark Twain. Not Samuel Clemens. Different person. Easy stuff, folks. I can explain it to you, but I cannot comprehend it for you. My apologies. I can only hope that you comprehend what I put here today to show you. If you understand your capacity in that signature alone, that's all you'll ever have to do. When they hand you a document, read it. Understand what it's saying in there. If there's anything that goes against the grain, line item veto it, override it, so they understand you're not the underwriter in some kind of insurance scheme as surety, taking up the suretyship of another man, of which you will smart for it. Show them that you're more intelligent than that. That's the problem. Reading comprehension and the fact that people don't want to read. So think about this stuff, folks. And remember, I love you. But I don't give a rat's ass whether you love me back. It really is that simple. Learning is a great thing. It's exciting and it's boring at the same time. But I guarantee you, in your lives, it'll open up great doors to things that you never thought were possible in your life when you start understanding this concept. You're the one that gives the directive. The 9th and 10th Amendments state this without saying it. So anyway, you guys know me. I love you, but I don't give a rat's ass whether you love me back. That's to say, I don't care if you hate me. I don't care if you don't respect me. That part is on you. So may your God bless you and love you. And we'll see you again next time. Bye now.